my computer. Marilyn, if you could, okay, great. We will have a recording of both the English and Spanish webinars available afterwards. So we just want to point out that the webinar is in listen only. So all of you as participants will be muted throughout the webinar. At the end of the present, Marilyn, I'm not able to hear you if you're asking me to stop.
Marilyn needs to be able to record and she's not currently able to.
Okay, if she's not able to, we can just keep going, Marilyn, and we can have somebody who will provide a Spanish interpretation afterwards. So it's okay. All right, so you should see at the bottom of your screen a Q&A box. That is where you should type all questions that you have throughout the webinar into that box. You will be able to see other participants' questions and you can upvote that question if you have the same one. During the Q&A portion, there is the option if you would like to come off of mute and ask your question to our panelists. All you should do is in your webinar toolbar at the bottom, you should see the option to raise your hand and we can allow you to talk and ask us a question. And right now we're going to release a poll with one quick question. So Kendra, if you don't mind releasing that poll, we just ask you to answer how much information you know about Durham Pre-K. All right, just a few more moments to answer that quick poll question, and then we'll move forward. All right, thank you to all who answered that question. So we are going to first give you just a brief agenda of what's going to be covered today. We're going to do some introductions of all of the agencies that work on the Durham Pre-K initiative. We're going to go through an overview of Durham Pre-K, those required documents that you need to apply for Durham Pre-K, and then we're going to go through the application together, walking through how you should complete that so that you can see and be prepared for Monday when our application opens. Then we're going to go through what to expect after submitting an application, your site preferences, our notification timeline, and then we will get to our Q&A. So first, some introductions. I'm going to ask all of our panelists if you could please put your name in the chat, which agency you work with, and your role within that agency. There are multiple agencies that work on the Durham Pre-K initiative. That includes Child Care Services Association, Durham's Partnership for Children, Durham Public Schools, Families and Communities Rising, and Durham County. So Child Care Services Association is the contract administrator of Durham Pre-K. Durham's Partnership for Children administers NC Pre-K here in Durham County. And then Families and Communities Rising administers Head Start. Marilyn, are you good? Okay, so now we're going to go through an overview of Durham Pre-K. So Durham Pre-K is Durham County's local investment in high quality early childhood experiences. So Durham Pre-K enhances existing pre-K seats and it expands access to all 4-year-olds in Durham County. So what that boils down to is there are only 2 eligibility requirements in order to apply for Durham Pre-K. The first one is that your child must be 4 on or before August 31st. And you must be a resident of Durham County. If both of those apply to you and your family, you are able to apply for Durham Pre-K. So Durham Pre-K is free for all families that are 400% at or below the federal poverty level. Any families that make above that amount are still eligible to apply, but you will be asked to contribute a sliding scale monthly parent fee that's based off of your income and family size. So this is just a table that we have available at the website that's linked below. This is this sliding scale for Durham Pre-K. So as you can see, you could identify your family size. If you make within the range of the blue part of the chart, you will not be asked to contribute a parent fee. If you make anything above that amount that's over on the green part of this table, you would be asked to contribute a monthly parent fee. And your parent fee will be listed on your placement notification letter that you receive if you're placed in a Durham Pre-K classroom. So now we're going to go through why you should choose Pre-K, and specifically why we think you should choose Durham Pre-K. So research shows that Pre-K increases the likelihood of reading on grade level by 3rd grade. It increases development and use of social skills. And play-based learning is an effective way for children to learn. It prepares them for kindergarten and develops their social emotional skills. So specifically more about why we think you should choose Durham Pre-K is that each of our Pre-K sites is a 5-star childcare center. Each of our lead teachers either already have or are working towards their birth to kindergarten license. That's also referred to as a BK license. And our sites receive weekly technical assistance from our Durham Pre-K TA team. So that comes in the form of coaching and mentoring that comes from our staff. So the Durham Pre-K application, it allows families to just complete one application and be considered for all publicly funded pre-K seats here in Durham County. And so those seats will be located in Durham Public Schools classrooms, Durham Head Start classrooms, and then at community-based licensed programs. So the 23-24 application opens on Monday, February the 6th at 10 a.m. The application is available online, and it is only available online right now. So you'll be able to visit this link that's here in the presentation in order to apply. And then you must apply by May the 12th in order to be considered for all of the available spaces. And that is simply because May the 12th is the last day that you can apply in order to be considered for a seat in a Durham Public Schools classroom. All of our other pre-K seats do not have a deadline for you to apply. So if you do not meet that May the 12th deadline, please do not be worried. You can still complete your application and be considered for pre-K. And now I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie Humphrey to give some more information specifically about Durham Public Schools.
Good morning. In order to be considered for a Durham Public Schools classroom, your completed application must be done by May 12th. Please be mindful that if your application is not in by May 12th, I am unable to guarantee a screening, which is needed to determine eligibility for our classrooms. The screening consists of a parent questionnaire as well as a developmental questionnaire. Once we receive that information and score the questionnaires, the numbers or scores will be ranked in file order from highest to lowest, and the child that has the highest score will be placed first. Eligible children are placed in a classroom closest to your home address. Placement is made through our office only, the Office of Early Education. Please do not apply for pre-K at Power School because we're going to direct you right back to the durhamprek.org application. Location preferences will be considered, but I am unable to guarantee placement at your preferred site. If you have a child that's already out of school with a pre-K site, I'm still unable to guarantee that your pre-K child will be placed at that same location. Currently, Durham Public Schools does not offer transportation or before and after school, so you must pick your child up at the time designated by the classroom teacher in the school, drop them off at that time, and then pick them up at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. So now we're going to go through the required documents that you must provide on your Durham Pre-K application. First, we need proof of your child's birth. We need proof of address, and we need proof of income. And that needs to be 1 month's worth for the entire household, as well as the annual income for each of those household members. There are going to be other documents that might be requested when you're completing the application. You can visit our required documents page on the Durham Pre-K website in order to review that information. And then we do want to point out that if you're a family that receives SNAP benefits, we would ask you to upload proof of that as well. That does make you automatically eligible for Head Start. So we would appreciate any families who receive SNAP to just go ahead and upload those in your application. So now we're going to go through this table of what documents are accepted for each of those categories. So first, going through what you could provide as proof of birth or proof of your child's age. The most common document that we receive is the birth certificate. However, if you do not have your child's birth certificate, we can accept medical records as well as a valid passport. We do want to call out as well that we would need proof of legal guardianship, legal custodian, or if the child is in foster care, if that applies to you. For proof of address, the most common things that we receive would be a utility bill. It does need to be an energy bill, water bill, or a gas bill. We cannot accept a phone bill or internet as your proof of address. We can also accept a valid lease with your signature on it, your valid driver's license, as long as it has your current address listed, and or a mortgage statement. And for proof of address, we just need one of those documents, as well as for proof of age. If you're a family that lives in a location where your name is not listed on the lease or is not listed on any of the utility bills, when you apply, you will see a letter there that you can have whoever's name the lease or the bill is in. That person can simply write a letter that states that you and your family reside at their location, and we just need that letter to be signed and dated. For proof of income, as a reminder, we need both monthly as well as annual. So we would need pay stubs that need to be consecutive. When we go through the application, you will see that you are told exactly how many pay stubs you need to provide to us based off of how often you get paid. If you don't have pay stubs, we can accept a letter from your employer if it lists your hourly rate and then is signed and dated. As mentioned before, we also need your annual income. So we would need your tax information, and we will go through the application where you can see how you can report your annual income if you do not have a W-2 or another form that shows your tax information. If you receive SNAP benefits, unemployment benefits, or child support, we would ask for proof of that. And then for any families that do not make any income, you will be prompted to give us a signed documentation of no income, statement of no income. And that is automatically done within the Durham Pre-K application itself. And so now I'm going to move the slide over for our Spanish-speaking participants to be able to see this information written in Spanish. So now we're going to transition over to a walkthrough of the Durham Pre-K application together. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen in order to pull up that information for us. So the first page that you're going to come across is our home page, which will look like this. Up here, you will see the option for Spanish-speaking families to switch over to Spanish if that is what you need. For families that do not already have a SurveyMonkey Apply account, you'll want to click this button right here and click register, where you will put in a first and last name, an email, and a password. And then when you create your account, you will receive an email from SurveyMonkey Apply to verify that account. And that is very, very important that every family verifies their SurveyMonkey Apply account. For me, I already have a SurveyMonkey Apply account. So for any family who may have already applied for Durham Pre-K in the past few years when we were using this platform, you would be able to just sign back into your account. And then we will see the option to choose either 2000, you'll see the option to choose the 2023-24 application. So this is just some helpful information that you'll see. This year we have some great demo videos. If you get stuck on a certain task, be sure to watch those and it will give you step-by-step instructions. You'll see I've already started my application. So we're going to go in together and take a look at it. I would click continue. But the first thing when you create a new account that you will do is submit an eligibility form. So the eligibility form will look like this. It will have 2 questions. Again, those 2 eligibility requirements. Is your child a Durham County resident? And what is your child's date of birth? If either of those options, if you answer no, that you're not a Durham County resident, or your child's birthday is outside of this time frame between those 2 dates, you will not be able to move forward because you would not be considered eligible for Durham Pre-K. So once you hit submit, as long as your child's eligible, you will then pop up and see all of these options over here to the left of what we need for your application. So the first thing is we would need your child's information. And so when you are filling it out, it will look like this. And you see at the top, I have the half circle because I've not clicked mark as complete. So that indicates in the platform that you still have questions to answer. The first thing we're going to ask you is if a staff member is filling this out on your behalf. That would be if you have an application appointment or a community partner such as Book Harvest or Welcome Baby. If they're assisting you, we would just have you click yes, and then you can indicate which of those agencies are assisting you. However, for this instance, I'm going to say that I was completing the application on my own. Next thing we need is your preferred language, especially when you're talking to the screener. Again, as Stephanie mentioned, if you want to be considered for the public schools, you need to have a screening. So we'll put English, and then any families that speak Spanish or another language can indicate that as well. Then we are asked to retype our child's date of birth just to make sure that they're truly eligible, and then put your child's first, last, and middle name. Please be sure that this matches what you submit as proof of birth. So it should match whatever is on the birth certificate, medical records, or passport. Next, we would need to know the child's address. So I've filled that in here. And then we will have the child's gender. If the child is a US citizen. This one, we just want to point out this note off to the side here. Please know that your citizenship status does not affect whether or not you are eligible for the program. But if you choose not to answer and leave it blank, that will just limit the program options that you are considered for. Next, we will have you indicate your child's race and ethnicity. Again, putting the home language and how often your child speaks English. So that would be all the time, most of the time, some of the time, or not at all. So as you see right here, we indicate that some of our pre-K locations offer additional hours beyond the 6.5 hour school day. We would ask you to indicate if the availability of before and after school care is required for your family or not. So I indicated that for me, as filling this out, I do need before and after care. So these next questions are about if you have an additional pre-K child to apply for. So you'll see right here, the steps that will occur if you do need a second application. So you will need to completely fill out the first application and submit it. And then an additional application will be opened by our Durham Pre-K team. So that would be for any families that have twins or just 2 children that they're applying for. And you see that all of this will be sent via email when it is ready. So down here is where we can indicate if you do have more than 1 child. So if I were to click yes, you will see you're asked how many children you need an application for. So you could write 2, and then you could put a child's first, last name, date of birth, and add as many other ones as you would need, as many other applications. For these purposes, we're going to write that we do not need an additional one. And then on this application, we're going to put that only 1 adult contributes to the household income. So now we're going to mark this section as complete, and we will let the system load. And this is exactly what we want. We wanted to see a green circle with a check mark at the top that indicates everything was answered in this section. And so after you complete your child's information, you will see right here is where you are directed to upload your child's proof of age. And you will see the complete list of what is accepted as your child's proof of age. And then down here, we would click attach file, and you would be able to browse either on your computer or phone to upload a document. And then of course, right now, I'm not able to mark as complete because I haven't uploaded anything, but please be sure that you click that mark as complete and then wait for the green check at the top here again in order to move forward. So now we're going to move into the primary parent or guardian information. So I'm going to click edit since I've already done it. And this is where you would put the primary parent's information. We need the first and last name. If someone's name other than Guardian 1 or Guardian 2 is on the birth certificate, that would prompt our system to know that we would need proof of legal guardianship or legal custodianship. We need to know if your address is the same as the child's, because only adults that do live in the same household as the child are counted towards the overall income. This is where we ask you if we have permission to text you about your application, placement, and with updates from our Durham Pre-K team. But you do need to activate that by texting DPK to 1-833-773-5338 or signing up here. Next, we're going to ask how you prefer to be communicated with if we have any questions about your application. So I selected that I would be fine with any of those methods of communication, but you could select just one, all of them, or 2. So then we will put the legal guardian 1's email, phone number, their date of birth, We need marital status. So for our purposes, I put that this mom is single. And then the relationship to the child, legal guardians, the legal guardian's race and ethnicity, the highest level of education that is completed by the guardian, and then here is where we ask all of the primary guardian's activities. So you'll see these options would be to indicate if that primary guardian is employed or if they're seeking employment, if they are in college or post-secondary education. So this again is a check all that apply, and please put all of those that apply to the first guardian. So then we would scroll down, and this table is where we would ask again for the guardian's name, the name of their employer, and the employer's address. If this guardian had multiple jobs, we would ask that you then also put the name of your second job and the address, and then the total number of hours that you're working weekly. And if a primary guardian has 2 jobs, we would ask that the total number reflect both jobs. If the parent is in any sort of post-secondary education or job training, this is where we would also ask for that information to be uploaded, and then we would need proof that that parent or primary guardian is in school. So that would be a school schedule or a letter from an acceptance letter from the school. So next is another check all that apply. This is for the primary guardian's income sources. So as you can see, I've selected that we put up later is that I, as the primary guardian, am employed and I only have 1 job. However, if I were to receive child support and SNAP, when we scroll down here, you will see that I am able to indicate the frequency with which I receive each of those sources of income. Now, it's very important that on the employment, you indicate the correct number, the correct frequency with which you're paid, because then later when we go into the platform, we'll see that it will automatically fill in how many pay stubs you need to give us. So just for these purposes, I will uncheck these 2, and then you'll see that they go away if they're not checked. So next, we would need to know if the primary parent and legal guardian is an active duty member of the military. If yes, you'll see that there's going to be something that pops up for you to upload proof of that. But for these purposes, we'll just indicate no. And then the same instance, if there is a second parent or guardian in the household, when I select yes, you'll be told that a brand new form that looks identical to this form will pop up in order to fill out the same information for primary guardian 2. For these purposes, we're going to indicate no, since we said that this is just a 1-parent household. And then I would want to click mark as complete and see if there's anything that's missing from my primary parent or guardian information, and the system said that there's not anything missing. If you are missing information, right up here would be a red exclamation point, and then when you scroll down, you would see it would be very clear which pieces were missing that you had not answered. So then you'll see, similar to the proof of age, after this point is where we will ask for proof of address, proof of annual income, and proof of weekly income, since I indicated that I'm paid weekly. So when we go into each of these, there is a specific list of what can be accepted. And then, as we mentioned earlier, this is the signed and dated letter if there's if the parent or guardian's name is not on the bill or lease. So you would be able to select this, and it would open this form that you could fill out with that information. And then you will see it's also available in Spanish. So next is where we would put our annual income. Again, the complete list that is accepted for annual income. And then similar to what we mentioned, this is if you do not have a W-2 or any of those items listed, you are able to indicate how much you made in the year of 2022 in order to submit your annual income. And this form is also available in Spanish for our Spanish-speaking families on our Spanish application. So next we'll click in to see our proof of monthly address. And so this is the piece that we're talking about right here. This would change based off of whatever frequency you put. So this would be either 1, 2, or 4. And then just as we mentioned, there is the form that you can still use the same form that we were just looking at. If you do not have monthly income, we can, any pay stubs, we can accept that. We can also accept that employment letter if you do not have, if you need to submit that instead of pay stubs. And similar to all the other ones, we would always want to make sure you click mark as complete and see the green check mark. Our next piece is the child's health information. This question about whether or not your child is potty trained does not it does not influence your eligibility in the program. This is just helpful information for our site providers to know. We ask about your child's health insurance and receive that information from you. We ask about your child's primary doctor or pediatrician, and then indicate that you provide that to us. If you do put that you're seeking a primary care doctor, our staff may be able to help you, give you some suggestions of providers that you could look for in the area, and the same information about a dentist. This information is also key for our health assessments that are required if you are selected for a seat in pre-K. Next, we're asked about if your child has a chronic health condition. And if I were to select yes to any of these, I would be asked to list the condition and then, of course, provide documentation of that. For a chronic health condition, that would be a doctor's note, or any sort of medical records that indicate the chronic health condition. We ask about a child's IEP or a private service plan. Again, if I were to indicate that, we're going to ask that you please submit a copy along with your documents. And then same thing about if a child receives any sort of special services, and I can indicate what that would be for my child. And then I would mark as complete and make sure that I get the green check mark up at the top. Our next piece will be about your child's education. So we will see, ask if your child receives childcare financial assistance. So that would be in the form of any sort of scholarship or subsidy that you may receive. We ask if your child is on the wait list for any of those. And then we move on to your current childcare arrangements. So if I were to select that, yes, my child is currently enrolled in preschool or in childcare, I can then you'll be prompted to provide information on that. So I could put that my child's in a childcare center and the name of that center. If you would like, as It is very important if you do attend a site right now that you would like to remain at. As long as it is one of our pre-K sites, we will honor this question right here. If you would like your child to remain there, or if you would like them to be considered for other options. So we would just ask you to indicate one of those and provide the address and information on what dates your child has attended. And again, if your child is currently there, just put the date that you are applying. So next would be, has your child previously attended any other programs? And so it would be asked, you'll be asked the same information that we were above. I'm going to indicate no on this, and then I'm going to go ahead and click mark as complete. And we will see on this one that I did receive some errors. So I wanted to make sure that all of you all were able to see what will happen if you don't answer information. So I'm going to scroll down and look for the orange pieces. So as you see, I didn't answer a required question. And so it flagged, the system flagged that, and I would need to put in an answer before I was able to move on. Just for our purposes, I'm going to go ahead and click no, and then mark as complete, and that should clear out the system for us. Next, we have our household information. So the first question that you're going to be asked is about your living situation. So if you are living with relatives in a shelter, you can put that. For this one, we're going to indicate that we are not in any sort of temporary or transitional living situation. Then we ask that you provide an emergency contact, and this is very important. This person is the person that we're going to reach out to if we cannot get a hold of you. So we ask that you put somebody there who will be able to get answers or a hold of you if we are not able to hear from you when we are emailing you or when we're calling you. And you can list up to 3 emergency contacts by checking those checkboxes. Next, we're going to ask you to list out every child who is living in your home. So for these purposes, I just put that I had 1 child, but if you have 3, 4, or any more, all you need to do is just click add another line after each of those until you've filled out the total number of children that are in your household. And then the same thing about the adults that live in your household. And I wanted to indicate you need to put child's name, date of birth, the name of their school or education program. This is important for if you would like your child to be placed at the same public school as their sibling, and if you would like us to try, again, it's not guaranteed. This is where you could indicate where your children are attending, and then just the relationship to that pre-K child. Same information for all of the adults in the household, and we would add another line. So I'm going to mark as complete and make sure that we get the green check mark. Next, we'll be asked to submit our certifications and acknowledgements. We're not going to go through all of these statements together, but please be sure that you read each of these carefully and check that you understand them. One of the most important ones that we need for you to pay attention to is this one right here, that transportation is not available through pre-K, so that is the responsibility of your family. So we ask you read all of those and check all of them. And then at the bottom, you'll be asked to use your mouse, trackpad, or touch screen if you're doing it on your phone, provide a signature, and then a date. and this is automatically filled in. So we'll click mark as complete and make sure we get the green check mark. And then the last piece that we need, you'll see that it's listed as optional. If you'd like to be considered for the public schools, we need you to fill out this information. We are going to ask you the best time of the day to call you for that parent questionnaire that Stephanie mentioned earlier. So again, you can indicate as many of these if you're available all day or if only in the mornings and the evenings. And then we need your name, email, and phone number again. Now we will point this out right here. Once an application is submitted, no other changes can be made. So if you realize that you completed a part wrong, or if something changes from the time that you submit it, you need to call our help desk and receive assistance with getting that updated. And they can reopen the application for you. But once I clicked mark as complete, I should get the green check mark. And then down here, we would see submit. As you see, I'm still missing 4 of my required tasks since I didn't upload any documents. So I am not able to click submit until I provide those. But once I did upload something, this would turn green and I can click submit. And then my application would be sent to the Durham Pre-K team for review. And that is completing the entire application together. We're going to jump back in for the last piece of our presentation before we get to our Q&A. So now we're going to go through what you should expect after you submit an application. First, all notifications are going to be sent via email. As we mentioned before, it's very important that you verify your email through SurveyMonkey Apply in order to receive those emails. You would receive emails if you are missing documents, if when your application is moving forward in our review process, and then whenever it's time to complete your site preferences or when you are offered placement. Phone calls will only be made from our Durham Pre-K help desk if we're unable to reach you via email. No placement notifications will be made over the phone. So again, very important that you provide an email that you check regularly and that you verify your email address. So just 3 quick steps, just to sum it up, of what you should do. First, verify your account through SurveyMonkey Apply. Second, we recommend that you put the email address of noreply@surveymonkeyapply.com into your email contacts. That's just to ensure that our emails that you receive from SurveyMonkey Apply actually come to your inbox and are not labeled as junk or spam. Please be sure, though, to monitor those folders, at least for your first email that you receive from SurveyMonkey Apply. So the third thing we would recommend that you do is sign up to receive those text messages from Durham Pre-K. Text messages are going to alert families when placement has begun and other application events that we may be hosting throughout the spring. You can sign up to receive those by texting DPK to 1-833-773-5338. So now we'll go through site preferences. As we've alluded to, you are able to indicate what site you would like your child to be placed in. You can see a complete list of our pre-K sites on our site locations tab. Some of our sites have virtual tours available on our website, but we strongly encourage you to schedule a tour at any of our sites by calling the site directly. And those tours can be in person. So wrap care is something that we mentioned when in the application, and just to reiterate, it is any hours that you need outside of the 6.5-hour preschool day. So this is a separate service from pre-K and will be an additional cost. subsidy and or scholarship assistance may be available, but again, that's only for qualifying families and seats. And then you can always call our help desk to receive information on that. And a list of our pre-K sites that do offer wrap care and their hours are available on the Durham Pre-K website. So when it is time for you to indicate your top 3 site preferences, you will receive an email notification from SurveyMonkey. It will say that you have another task to complete. Every family will receive an individualized list, and it will only include sites that you are eligible for. You can learn more about the eligibility requirements of each program at this page on the Durham Pre-K website. And similar to what Stephanie mentioned about the public schools, it's the same for our private and Head Start sites. Site preferences are considered, but they are not guaranteed. So you need to indicate your site preferences within 5 days of receiving the notification. Any applications that do not indicate site preferences within those 5 days will automatically be moved to the next review process. And then those applications will be placed within a 10-mile radius of the home or work address, whichever you indicate on your application. If you miss your 5-day deadline, you should call the help desk for assistance. And please remember that transportation is not provided through the Durham Pre-K program. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Stephanie to give some more information on indicating the public schools as your site preference.
Thank you, Grace. So while you are able to indicate your Durham Public Schools pre-K program as a site preference, let me try that again. You are not able to indicate a specific DPS site. So you can indicate Durham Public Schools, but you're not able to indicate Sandy Ridge or Holt, because again, we have to use the eligibility information to determine, or the screening information to determine eligibility, okay? A DPS site is not guaranteed. As a reminder, we take the screening scores, we rank them in file order, and we place a child based on need. So the greater the score, the greater the need of your child. Thank you.
So next, a quick walkthrough of our notification timeline is that, again, our application opens on Monday at 10 a.m. Once you click submit on your application will be moving through our review process. You should receive email notifications as it moves through, and or if you're missing any documents. And then just a quick reminder, please apply by May the 12th in order to be considered for all seats. Applications will just be labeled as under review until placement begins, again, unless you hear from our staff. So please be sure to check your emails and look out for any phone calls that we may send you. So next is our notification timeline. Our first round of notifications will be held in early June. Again, all of those will be sent via email. If you do not receive a placement in our first round, your application will remain under review as long as you did not receive an email saying that you have missing documentation. Our second rounds will be in late June, and the same thing applies. If you don't receive a placement, your application is just still under review. And then we will have rolling notifications until all of our seats are filled. If you still do not receive a placement, then your application is just either still under review, things are missing, or we just don't have a seat available for you at that time. But your application will still be in our system. And then our first day of school for the 2023-2024 school year is August the 28th. All right, so now we have reached our Q&A portion of the webinar. We appreciate everyone being patient while we went through our application together, but I'm going to turn it over to Kathy and the team at CCSA to facilitate our Q&A.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Grace and Marilyn, for doing the presentation this morning. Grace, we do not have that many open questions. We have been able to answer pretty much all of the questions. I have to say that we have about 80 questions in the chat. And if you do still have questions, we're going to stay on for a few more minutes, and we're just going to type in all the answers to the questions so that everyone can have an opportunity to see, even if you have the same questions as other parents do as well. Okay.
I'd just like to lift up 2 questions from the chat that I think could benefit from some answers live. The first one was related to whether or not there is a spot in Durham pre-K for every eligible child in Durham. And I think that answer is kind of nuanced. So I just wanted to make space for someone to answer that. And the other is how we are addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion in the Durham pre-K program. So I just wanted to lift those 2 up for more explanation live.
Shamika, did you want to address those 2 questions for us?
Let me look back at the questions. Sorry, my apologies for that. With regard to diversity and equity, we are determining eligibility and placing children based upon their eligibility. For income and age eligibility, as well as that they're Durham County residents. So we are not singling out a particular group with regard to demographics. And we also will place a child who is differently abled or has needs in any of our program options, as they are all able and equipped to serve to a certain extent those needs and abilities. So that answers with regard to diversity and inclusion. And can someone please remind me of the other question that was lifted?
The other question was whether or not there is a space for every eligible child in Durham in the program.
That is contingent upon how many applicants apply, but we are looking to fill approximately 1,200 applications, seats throughout publicly funded pre-K. And that is inclusive of the majority of Durham Public Schools pre-K seats, excluding Moorhead Montessori and George Watts Montessori schools. Also community-based childcare, pre-K childcare, and Families and Communities Rising Head Start pre-K classrooms. So if there are 1,500 applicants in total, then there will be a wait list for that. Also, if we want to deep dive it a tad bit more, each site has a certain number of seats. So if 20 people have a preference of one location, but they only have 18 seats, then there will be 2 people who will have to be either on the wait list specifically for that school, or we would have to look at your second or third preference for placement. Which is why it's extremely important to indeed put preference for more than one preference for placement, and do a little research on what your preferences are. You will have the opportunity to go and visit the site locations page on the durhamprek.org website. When you're making your preferences, we all strongly recommend that you do so to kind of help with making your decision with regard to your preferences, as well as opportunity to see virtual tours. You can also schedule times to visit sites, things like that. We strongly encourage all of that to happen as you're making your preferences. Thank you.
And as we go and keep answering the questions in the chat, I wanted to mention that we will be open to appointments this coming up February the 6th on Monday. And you can call the 833-773-5338 number to make the appointments. If you're not able to process the application online yourself and you're having any difficulties, you can always call that number and set up an appointment and come into the office as well. We are located at 1201 South of Briggs Avenue, and you are always welcome to stop in and set up an appointment with us. Also, you can email us at pre-k@childcareservices.org, and we can set up that appointment. If you're a busy parent and you cannot pick up the phone and make that phone call, you can always email us and we will be able to process that appointment time for you as well.
Well, Grace, if you don't mind, I do see a few questions about the developmental screening, and I did answer it for a parent, but just so for our hearing, there are 5 developmental areas. Let me turn my camera on. Sorry about that. There are 5 developmental areas that we will look at when we call you for the screening. Please note that the screening will take between 45 to 60 minutes. To answer, we're going to look at your self-help skills, or we'll ask you questions about self-help, social emotional development, cognitive development, approaches to play and learning, and language and communication. There will be a series of questions in each of those sections to determine eligibility for your child for a DPS classroom. There's also a section that asks about your child's overall development, but that portion of the questionnaire will not be factored into the scores. We ask those questions so that we can best support your child in the classroom, whether they're Durham Public Schools or at a private site or Head Start. I hope that answers the questions and kind of eases your mind about the screening. We do ask though that you be honest, because we do want to best support your child where their development is now so that we can get them where they need to be for kindergarten.
Stephanie, I see another one about school tours, and are the public schools required to allow families to tour or not?
So yes, we're taking tours, but it's a little bit tough, you all, because once we are out for school over the summer, teachers come back about a week before school begins. And that is a tough time to plan for several families in 1 week. So I would encourage you, if your child is accepted into a Durham Public Schools classroom, please do not call the school. The teacher will not be there to answer your questions. But I do encourage you to go to the school's website to see when open house is. And during open house, you'll have an opportunity to talk to your child's teacher, talk to the administration if you like to, tour the school, tour the classroom. That would be the best time for you to get a good look at the school and the teacher and everything.
And that is strongly recommended in private or community-based childcare pre-K programs to schedule a time to come in and meet the teachers, as well as to tour the centers. That is also why we also have the option of virtual tours on the durhamprek.org website. Although we are coming out of the pandemic, we are still being very cautious and taking into consideration the health and safety of the children who are currently in the child care centers and in the schools and the staff. And so we want to make sure that things are scheduled in a way that, we don't have a whole lot of traffic in and out of these different locations during times where there are a lot of people as well. that does not mean that you can't go during school hours. Just want to make sure that we're clear on that. It's just, we're trying to kind of balance out the fact that we're still, that COVID is still very real, along with very other things.
Thanks, Jamika. Another question I would like to address live and just make sure from those of us that are more actively involved with the application. One parent asked, if you click that before and after care is required for your family, does that limit the options that then you see? And then alternatively, if you don't click it, will you see a greater number of sites when you are indicating site preferences? So is someone able to answer that and give a firm answer on if that is the case? Kathy, do you happen to know the answer to that question about?
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I was just typing a question.
No worries. I saw one family asked, does their list of sites when they're indicating site preferences grow smaller when they put that before and after care is a requirement for them? So in other words, would they only see the sites that provide before and after care, or would they see all sites they're eligible for and then need to do research on which ones have before and after care?
So you will have to go to our website, and that information is provided there, all the before and after care. And that's why we encourage parents to do the research ahead of time. So if they have that need for before and after, they can make that assessment before they actually do their site preferences.
Right, but do you know if that list, so from what I'm hearing then, your list would not grow smaller. You would see all of the sites that you're eligible for, and then need to go on the back end and make sure that a site that you indicate as your top preference actually does provide before and after care.
That's correct. That is
Okay,
exactly correct.
great, thank you.
Grace, I saw a couple of questions about whether or not children placed at elementary schools that are year-round in those pre-K programs, will
Yes,
they
thank
also be
you.
on the year-round schedule? And I think I answered that, but I don't know if I answered it correctly, so I just want to make sure we have it on the record live.
Yes, I
Yes,
actually was about to
actually-
ask that. Go ahead,
Yes, I
Stephanie,
did.
sorry.
No worries. I'm sorry for talking over you. Yes, I actually did answer that question as well. We will place your child at a year-round school either prior to the start of school or shortly thereafter. Yes.
But Stephanie, could you share then, would they track out the same way the year-round kids at that school track out? Or are they on like a traditional calendar in the pre-K classroom while the rest of the school is on
Oh,
the
thank you.
year-round
I
calendar?
got you. I got you now. Okay, yes. So our pre-K classrooms for Durham Public Schools follow the calendar for that particular school, which if they're in a year-round school, they will follow the guidelines of that school and the DPS calendar. If they're in a traditional school, they'll follow the same. So yes, if you go to Pearson Town, you will start school July, I think 17th, and then follow the calendar accordingly. And all of the calendars, I actually added the link to the calendars in the question and answer section, but I'll go ahead and add it to the chat so that hopefully you can just click right on.
I also wanted to say that you also follow that same school time. So if the school starts at 7:45, then the preschool classrooms follow the same school day hours as well.
So I'll just apologize. I think I answered the first one of those questions back in the middle of the webinar incorrectly, and I apologize for doing that.
Oh, well, we thank you for your support, Kate. It's all good. Thank you.
I would also just like to point out to everyone, we will be creating a frequently asked questions document in which you will see all of the questions with answers, including those links. So that will be available on the website and hopefully emailed to you. So we will be able to get those correct answers out to you all as families.
And I see a lot of questions in regards to the IEP. If the child currently has that IEP, someone can address that, either Jamika or Stephanie. What will happen if that child is in a current site location or a Durham Public School location, and then he is receiving special services.
Anything
So-
IEP related is definitely Stephanie.
So if your child has a current IEP and they are already placed at a site location, then please have a conversation with your child's teacher. You can apply for Durham Pre-K if you like, but please have a conversation with your child's teacher to determine if the data shows that they need to remain at their current placement or if they're able to go into a classroom with their typically developing peers.
And I also see another question, a lot of questions in relation to potty training. So the child needs to be potty trained before he actually starts.
Yes, thank you so much for that, Kathy. We definitely request that your child be potty trained to attend Durham Public Schools classrooms unless there is a medical condition. If there is a documented medical condition, please submit that information in your application so that we can take that into consideration when we're making placement for your child.
Kathy or Cecilia, there is a Spanish question in the chat with regard to vaccination for COVID-19. I was just wondering if one of you would be willing to provide the Spanish answer as well. For English, it is not a requirement to have a COVID vaccination for pre-K. However, you would need to have your typical 4-year-old vaccines or a bona fide exception to exemption for pre-K.
Sí, estuvo una pregunta de una familia que está haciendo preguntas si les requieren la vacuna del COVID. Las escuelas públicas no los obligan a que los vacunen, sin embargo, sí tienen que tener todas sus vacunas requeridas hasta los 4 años y su examen físico. También tiene que completar una forma, bona fide se llama, y supongo que la puede ir y pedir ya sea en su centro de salud o a las escuelas públicas. Stephanie, do they have to request the bona fide form from DPS?
You said the bona fide form?
Mm-hmm.
What's that, please?
Like to be exempted from getting vaccinated from COVID.
Oh, that is
No.
a good question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Do you have an answer, Stephanie?
I do not. I was going to reference my director.
La forma pudiera tal vez conseguirla del centro de salud, pero no tenemos la información en este momento.
I'm not sure what, can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so there is a form families who don't wish to vaccinate their kids against COVID must fill out. And so we were wondering where they should get it from.
That's something I'll have to find out about. I do not know anything about that form, and I apologize.
It's not about COVID. It's not the vaccine for COVID. It is actually for regular immunizations.
Okay.
And that I am aware of, it is actually a doctor's note and not a actual form from what I could gather in my research. But Karen, you and I did the research together from the DHHS website and through the Durham Public Schools website with regard to it. And there wasn't a form specifically for it, but it is something that a doctor would have to provide verification that the family is exempt and has a bona fide reason.
Ok, lo que están diciendo en cuanto a las familias que no desean vacunar a sus niños para el COVID es que pueden pedir esta forma directamente del centro de salud, de su doctor primario, y explicando la razón por las cuales ustedes pudieran ser exentos de no vacunar a sus niños. Ellos deben de tener esta información ahí o escribirles una carta con una razón.
And I saw the same question going back to the potty training for some Spanish speaking families that we have still. So I'm gonna speak in Spanish. So sí necesita los niños estar completamente entrenados y necesitan poder ir solitos al baño sin asistencia. Okay.
I also wanted to call out that there's quite a few questions about what you do when you do not have income. I'm sorry that we didn't go over this through the application, but when you're indicating the parents' activities, when you select that they are stay-at-home, unable to work, and that you have no documentation of income, the system will automatically pop up with a statement of no income. We will ask you to provide a reason for why you're not working right now. This can be as simple as you need childcare, and so you're unable to work until your child is in childcare. And then similar to that, certifications and acknowledgements, you will be asked to use a touchscreen, a mouse, or a trackpad to sign. And that is it. That is all we would need from you to prove as your proof of income.
I'm seeing a note from Daniela that they're having trouble connecting with the audio in Spanish and just want to double check with Marilyn.
Okay, so we only have 4 more questions open in the chat, which is great. So we want to thank everybody for coming in today, agradeciendo a todas las familias por venir. And thank you everyone that put this together. And again, we will be recording this. So if you were not able to make it or you have to leave, in the middle of it, you will be able to get the recording posted in both English and Spanish.
Thanks, Kathy. And just as our closing piece, I just again want to be explicit about the Durham Pre-K Help Desk. This is where you can get all of your questions answered and get your application appointment scheduled. So we'll close out on these slides. This is the phone number that we've been repeating throughout it, but just again, one more time, 1-833-773-5338, or you can email prek@childcareservices.org. And again, the help desk is there to schedule an in-person or virtual appointment, answer any questions you have about the application process, about those documents. If you need support in completing an application in a language other than English and Spanish. And then as well as you are able to email or text any of your missing documents to our help desk, again, at that email or by texting the 1-833-773-5338. And I'm gonna move it on over so that our Spanish speaking families can see this information in Spanish. All right, so with that, we would like to say thank you so much for joining us. Please be on the lookout for that email that will contain the recording, as well as a few other initiatives that we have started this year to help support you all as families in getting that application complete. Please call our help desk if you have any questions. And we just, again, thank you for your time and are looking forward to hopefully serving you in the 23-24 school year. Have a great weekend, and
Are we doing another poll, closing out poll?
No, we are not. You will
Oh,
receive
okay.
a survey as well in that email, and we just encourage any feedback that you may have. Thank you, Jamika, for pointing this out. That includes that we are hosting another family info session, and we want your opinions on what you would want to hear from our staff. So in that survey, please indicate what you may want to hear in the late spring as we grow closer to the start of the school year. But we wish you all just a happy weekend and hope that on Monday you start completing your application. All right, and panelists, I am going to give us just a few more minutes and then I will end us. And I thank you all for your time and for all the things that you did to contribute to this morning. It's a great team effort. So thank you all.